Welcome to Paradox Culture Podcast. In this podcast, we'll explore how our life and words don't always say the same thing. I'm your host, Trent Peacock. I've served in ministry full-time for 20 years, and I've been married for 21 years to a great woman named Lacey Peacock, and we have two awesome teenage boys, and I also love to do obstacle course racing. Welcome to episode 1 of the Paradox Culture Podcast. We are been so excited to get this thing started, and with me today I have my co-host, Philip Blancardi.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I've been serving in ministry for 10 years now, full-time, and worked with students, and now I'm working with our college and young adults. So excited to be here, excited to get this thing off and rolling, and looking forward to our first episode.
So, Philip, as you know, I've been kind of dwelling on this project for about a year and a half. We've had conversations about it, and it's just been so fun now to finally see it come to fruition and get started. And I'm looking forward to how you and I can kind of look at different perspectives on life. You coming from a little bit of a younger generation than my generation, the millennial versus the Xers, and kind of see how life goes and how we perceive things. So I'm excited about us doing that in the future. And also on the Paradox Culture Podcast, we are going to be having special guests periodically on this podcast. So today, for the first episode, we are so excited to welcome a very special guest, and her name is Jennifer Cook. Now, Jennifer has 6 children and has been married to her husband, Steve, for 28 years, so she knows a lot about life, and we're so glad that she is here joining us today. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. I appreciate you asking me to be here.
Now, Jennifer, I have a couple questions that I want to run through so that the folks can get to know you a little bit.
Okay.
I call this like the rapid fire question, so I want your first immediate reaction to these questions, okay?
Oh, my. Okay, here we go.
All right, so the first one's easy.
Okay.
The first one is, where did you grow up? What city and state?
Born in Atlanta, Georgia, Crawford Long Hospital.
There you go. All right, so she's a true Georgian.
Yes.
Born and raised, all right?
Absolutely, yep.
All right, next, pancakes or waffles?
Waffles.
Chocolate or candy?
Chocolate.
Camping or hotel?
Ooh.
Camping.
Camping, all right. Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Netflix or Hulu?
Netflix.
All right. Sports or shopping?
Oh, my gosh, sports.
I knew that was going to be your
Good
answer.
Good answer.
Let's see. Falcons or Braves?
Falcons.
Wings or burgers?
Ooh, man. Burgers.
Old Testament or New Testament?
New Testament.
All right. So today's podcast, we're going to talk about, what would it be like to press pause in life? In fact, many of us probably have said at one time, I wish I could just press pause. Mm-hmm. And in our current culture, that is literally what is happening. Like, the world has pressed pause. Many of you are not working you're working from home or not working at all. Your kids are home doing school at home. All kinds of crazy things happen. Can't even go out and be with friends. You got to be social distanced. All those things. But, we've kind of had this dream of what would it look like if we could just press pause in life. So from your guys' perspective, was it what you thought it would look like?
I don't think so. I think folks think of pause as a yield sign. We're going to slow down, but we're going to keep moving. Or maybe even a stop sign where you stop, but then you go again.
Right.
And this is more like a bad airport layover.
Oh, yeah, good. Yeah, that's
This
great
is like
analogy.
a traffic jam that's backed up in the front and backed up in the back, and you can't go anywhere.
Yeah,
It's
stuck.
a different kind of pause.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think because it's not on the expectation timeline that we were kind of anticipating. When you get to press pause on things or pause on, stop and slow down, it's like, well, I get to choose which things I get to do that in. Which moments, if I want to slow down with my family or if I want to slow down with friends or with a relationship. But kind of the situation we're in right now, it seemed just like everything is gone. And, I know for at least the 3 of us with doing ministry, a lot of things have picked up. And so I know for me and for Amy, in our life, it it kind of is like a lot of things have slowed down, but a lot of things have sped up a little bit. So it's been a little strange to kind of be in this time frame a little bit. So it's weird.
Yeah,
for sure.
It is not exactly like you said. It's not like the pause on our terms.
That's right.
You know, we've always wanted to press pause, but as long as we're dictating what that looks like.
That's right. I want to press pause and go get popcorn and then come back and press play.
Yeah.
And that's not where we are.
And you know, I think our culture does a terrible job of pressing pause in general. We think we would do a great job at it, and I think we have this idea that we would use that time to rest and recoup and recharge. But I think it's kind of weird that we're not really I don't see and hear people talking about how that is taking place in their life right now.
I think you're exactly right. You hear people say when I'll clean my house when I'm not so busy. Well, we've all figured out that's not why we're not cleaning our house.
Right,
Okay,
right, yeah.
it's not because we're too busy. Nobody wants to clean it,
Yeah.
right? It's kind of like a husband may hear something, may give an excuse of, "I'll do it when I have time," and now all of a sudden, like,
That's come.
you do have time. So the honey-do list is long.
Yeah.
So I do think that you're right in that assessment.
Yeah. You know, it's funny to me because it's like here in the South, as soon as a snowstorm hits, the one thing we want to do, everybody freaks out, right? Oh gosh, we're all gonna die. The snow's falling, and all the people around the world laugh at us, right?
Go buy the milk and bread.
But
Yes.
but then what happens is like as soon as it's done or the initial falling of the snow happens, it's like, okay, time to get out in our four-wheel drives and get stuck in the mud or get stuck in the snow somehow. And so I feel like that's kind of where our culture is like. They were so excited maybe about the opportunity to stay home or to have this pause moment, but now it's like, okay, I'm ready to get out in the snow. I'm ready to go find out what's outside, and Waffle Houses are closing, so that tells you how bad it is. They're always open. But, so here's the other perspective I have, too, is, like, how are we going to use this time? And I feel like if we're not careful, I heard one of my friends and mentors talk about this today, that we have great potential to waste this God-given opportunity that we have in a way that you're going to regret. And I feel like, for us in Atlanta area has been 2 weeks of really kind of having the press pause, and some of that has just now started to get more restrictive, right? But I feel like in my heart, it's not like we're on a timer. Like the timer is ticking, and this time of pause is going to stop soon. And at the end of it, when the alarm goes off or the timer ends, I don't want to go and look back and say, man, I just wasted that time of pause, So what are some things that you guys are doing right now that could, how are you using this time? These can be fun things. These don't have to be the super spiritual stuff right now, but like what are some fun things, or what are some things you're just incorporating in your life to take advantage of this time?
Well, I think you were right about saying the first week was fun. We enjoyed it. It's like the first snowflake that comes down, school's closed, and we're in our pajamas and we're happy. But we're in several weeks of this. I mean, we're probably getting ready to hit a month here before long. And all of a sudden, we're having to reevaluate what we're doing at home. And some of the first week fun doesn't feel so fun anymore. The laundry and the cooking and the online school. And so I know for my own family, we've tried to spice it up a little bit. So we've been eating dinner on the deck. Every night we take dinner out to the patio and we eat lunch and dinner on the deck. And it gets my college boys out of their bedroom and off the TV, because when food is served, people come running, right? And it's just different. I can't remember the last time we ate a meal outside. And so it's almost making us have family time. Because isn't that what we say year round, is I wish I had more time for my family. I work all the time, or we're in school all the time. And so now we've got this time to do it, and I think it's going to take some intentionality.
What about you and Amy?
Yeah, I know for us, we, not to sound like that guy, but we are the people that have started cleaning things and I went out to the garage last week and I shopped back the whole thing and I got my wood shop kind of fired back up and started doing some things out there. And, one of the things that we've also started to do is exercising. We started doing that this past week, and that's one of those things where you go, I just don't have the time. I'm getting up, I'm getting ready for work. I'm doing quiet times, I'm doing my normal routine, and so like having that little bit of extra time. But some of those things, I love video games. I love to play video games, and that's one of those things that's like it's just gotten so boring now. I'm just like, this is not what I want to spend my time doing, and so. Learned how to make handmade pasta last week, so I was super proud of that. That was always one of those things that
Fancy.
I've wanted to. Yeah, I know, I'm fancy. So made some fettuccine Alfredo last week, and all handmade, and I was super proud of that. And I was like, man, this is awesome. But to both of your points, there are definitely things that I'm not interested in doing, and it's just gotten so old. And watching TV, it's like Netflix only has so many shows.
Right.
Hulu can only stream so many things.
That's right.
And I've I love Marvel movies, and I don't watch any of that because I'm over it. So just trying to find new things to do to like get better, I guess, is one of those things that I've really been working on because I don't do a lot of that normally.
Yeah. For us in our family, we did start the whole Marvel thing. Like, okay, let's start from the beginning and
Excellent.
watch them all in a row. And so that's been cool. It's been funny, as I told you earlier, that, my youngest wasn't even, was like a 1-year-old when the first Iron Man came out. But in my mind, I'm like, you haven't seen this?
You haven't seen
Like,
Iron Man?
Yeah, what are you doing?
I
What's
know.
wrong with
Well,
you?
I didn't show this to you when you were 2. What? Yeah. So that's been fun for me and the boys to get together and do that. Lacey's not so much into that, but that's okay. We've watched some of the old classic 80s, 90s movies, Top Gun. We let the boys see that for the first time, and it was really hilarious to hear their comments about like the acting, but also like, John David, my oldest, trying to figure out why are they doing that, and just like, what is dogfighting, and why are the planes chasing each other like that? It's just funny, and to hear his perspective and how he's never really saw that before. But, I think there's things that we're still looking for, and we're trying to find a rhythm. And I think that's probably been the hardest thing as we're trying to press pause. Okay, that's great, but what is the rhythm in the pause? And I feel like that's where Lacey and I as parents are a little bit frustrated because, like, we don't want our kids playing video games for 5 hours.
Right.
Like, we have a rule in our house that you get an hour a day, and that's after everything's done, homework and chores and all that. But now they're doing their schoolwork in 2-3 hours, and Lacey's working from home, and she's like, I can't like babysit them. They got to figure out how to live life
Yeah.
without me holding their hand. So that's causing some fun conversations in our house and some fun family meetings that we've been having. But, from a spiritual standpoint too, this is where a friend of mine texted me and several of the guys that were in my former D group. And shout out to James. James texted us the other day and he said, hey, men, I want us to make sure that as fathers and husbands that we're taking this every opportunity to invest in our families during this time. And I was like, thanks for that encouragement, James. My mind was already there, but just to hear him say it out loud was even a reassurance of, hey, don't let this opportunity get wasted, And so spiritually, I think we're encouraging our kids to learn and get better at having their personal quiet times. Going back to the idea that you can't always feed your kids.
That's right.
Like, you have college students in your home, and they have to learn how to do their laundry and make meals and all that. And just like that, they have to learn how to feed themselves spiritually.
That's right.
And so we're trying to figure out what that looks like for them, and also doing some family stuff together where we're praying together and doing family devotion time. As much to their chagrin sometimes when we pull them all into the living room and we pop in the Right Now Media video where we're going through the book of Mark with Francis Chan. And it's great and getting to talk through that, you know, and watch the video. Then we take a moment and we read that chapter that he went through in the video, and then we say, okay, well, what does that mean? And let's talk about some application of what we just heard and read, and how we move on from that. And so those have been good things that we have found that have been effective. What about you guys spiritually? Kind of what are some things that you're doing during this time of pause?
I would say I'm trying to come up with a new normal, and our whole family's trying to come up with a new normal. So the normal of when everyone got up and went to school and went to work was you got up and you had your time with the Lord maybe in the morning, and then you went about your day. And so now, to what you said earlier, Philip, there's only so many movies you can watch. There's only so many video games you can play. So we're trying to, as a family, make it more intentional and more fun, not so regulated.
Not rigid.
Yeah. So I'll be out in my little deck area. I have a little patio, enclosed patio, and I read we call it the Bible room, and I'm out there. And I'll just tell my son, come out here with me and have a cup of coffee. And so I'll have my Bible open, and we'll share a cup of coffee together, and then I just ask a question. Something about, listen to this devotion I read. Not so much of, come in here and sit with me and we're going to have 45 minutes of Bible study, but come in here and have a cup of coffee with me. And then I just have conversation, because at this point, there hasn't been a lot of conversation all through the year, if you want to think about it, because I'm at work,
Right.
they're at college,
Yeah.
they're meeting with friends at Starbucks or whatnot. So all of a sudden we have this forced time together, and we've got to learn how to talk again. We're not going to sit across the room from each other and text.
Yeah.
So we're having to talk. Well, it's a generation, the younger generation, where they don't talk, they text.
Yeah.
That's what they do.
They communicate.
So all of a sudden, I don't need you to text me. I'm right here. I'm from me to Philip.
Yeah.
So getting them engaged, but doing it in such a way that I don't even know that they know that I'm doing it.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, you're kind of doing it sneaky.
Have some coffee with
Yeah.
me, you know? And then the next thing, or I made some cinnamon rolls. Come eat one with me. They may not stay long with me, but they're long enough for us to engage in a conversation and for maybe to share a devotion or something I read and ask them, what do you think about that?
Right.
Good discussion.
That's good. Yeah, I bet you learned a lot too
I do.
about because you probably had a good pulse on where your kids were when they were in your home, but you don't always have that pulse when they're out of the home.
That's right. That's right. And even when they're in, you've got 2 kids still living in the house. Who knows what's going through their mind half the time?
That's true.
I mean, they're away from you 8 hours a day. I mean, that's how long they're gone. These children are in school. So all of a sudden, we have more than just 30 minutes around a dinner table now to talk. Now we've got a whole bunch of time during the day. And I think it's just, you're going to have to pull these children. They're going to have to be pulled away from the phone and pulled away from the video and pulled away from the TV. And we've pulled out the board games, and they all roll their eyes like, oh, Mom, please. But it's funny, once we start, they really like it.
Right.
Like, I pulled out Yahtzee, and you had thought I had, was going to, like, dismember somebody. I mean, they were, Mom. And by about the 3rd or 4th roll of the dice, everybody was looking and in it and thought, oh, I wouldn't put my 2s down. I put my 4s down. And it was amazing. It took 5 minutes, and everybody was having a good time. But you wouldn't have known that when you saw when I pulled out the box.
The game.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it's
It is true. I think we got to get past the eye roll, right?
yes, absolutely.
And I think it's for the parents that'll be listening, and I think there's no wrong thing to try. But I think what you said is key. You said it really well, and that is engagement and pulling them in,
That's right.
because your kids are natural. They're just I don't really blame it on kids. I think we all are, right? We all are just naturally pulled to the path of least resistance.
That's right.
And the path of least resistance would be sitting in front of a TV
Yes.
or an iPad or scrolling through Facebook for 2 hours, hearing the same posts, seeing the same things. How much of these news conferences can you actually watch without pulling out your hair?
That's
you
right.
know? So, for you though, because I know you and Amy are very social, right? And you guys are constantly having people to your house. and you honestly play like board games with your friends.
Yeah.
But that's kind of like even put on hold. So from a perspective of ones that don't quite have the kid thing going on yet, I mean, that's got to be really challenging too.
Yeah, just listening to you guys, I was thinking, we don't have kids. We're not trying to engage in conversations like that. We spend a lot of our time together, but we spend a lot of time with friends coming over and playing games, or with us having the college ministry. Those college kids are always wanting to do something, and so having to Zoom them the other day and having 17 college kids just on the computer screen having conversation together. Was one of those ways that we're trying to figure out. One of our college girls is like, hey, there's a way you can play board games online, virtually. And so, trying to manage those relationships and trying to make sure that those things are still happening. While at the meantime, Amy and myself at home trying to figure out, Amy works in foster care agency. And so like they're still staying busy, so for her, coming back to kind of like the spiritual aspect of it, her being able to get up and work from home has been nice, because now she gets to get up and do her quiet time at home instead of having to try to find some other place to fit that during her schedule. And so getting up to like sit down, and you know how it is. We can all get up in the morning and make that time. But at the back of your head is always this: I've got to get ready. I've got to get things done. I've got to get to the office. I've got to make sure things are happening. I think for her, being able to be like, what, I can start on this, as long as it's done at a particular time like it's supposed to be, she kind of gets to relax and do that. For me, still being here and still making sure things are happening, trying to be creative about how I'm doing that. And so, when I'm getting up and getting ready in the morning, I've always listened to podcasts or listened to, some speakers on YouTube doing some different things. But, at the end of the day, going outside, like you were talking about, going out and sitting outside and just spending time in the Word that way has been a change for me. Because you're right. Normally we have people coming in the house. We have friends coming over, and that's that time we get to do that. Whereas now, what do I fill my time with? I mean, I can sit down, I can watch Netflix, or I can dedicate some of this. And I think for the younger generation who is right now without kids, those college students out there, students in student ministry that are used to having those social interactions, that, this is that moment we've been telling you about, where be disciplined and set some time apart and look for the opportunity in those moments to really say, this is the time I'm going to block out, and I'm going to be intentional about spending time in this relationship. And I think that for a lot of us, it has been the busyness of life has kept us from a lot of these things. And now, we talked about, getting to press pause. This is one of those moments that I think we really should grasp and take hold of, is, spend that time with your family, spend that time with the loved one that you have in your home, but spend time with God. Set that time, like make sure that's a priority, because when else are you going to have this opportunity to really, start this? And I know habit can be kind of a negative word, but set this habit of, hey, this is what I've put in, and this is what I've built my schedule around, and I'm going to, don't stay up late because you don't have to go into work. Don't stay up late because you don't have to go to school. Or you can do online classes whenever you feel like it. Keep some schedule and make sure that you're setting yourself up for the long term when it comes to that relationship. And so for us, it's been trying to manage that. And with us being, a family that has no kids right now, just trying to maintain that schedule of make sure I'm still doing the things that I want to be intact when this all kind of ends. And so, it has definitely been a change, not having friends over quite the extent, not having the college kids over. We miss them like crazy, but it's weird. But it really has given us some opportunities to kind of implement some new things. So it's been neat.
So, here's the paradox, right? So this is part of what this podcast is about, the paradox of how things sometimes that we wish for or have said, we really don't we don't live out right in our life. And the paradox is, okay, we can waste this time of pause. We can not set disciplines in our life. And being a student pastor for many, many years, one of the infamously famous comebacks to me and trying to get kids in reading the Word was, I don't have time, But to their defense, I don't want to point fingers like, high school students and middle school students, I mean, they don't see their dads and moms doing that either. You know, they're saying the same thing. So
Okay.
that was a learned behavior, right? And now we just have this great opportunity to really model that and to put that in practice and to really, like you said, I like how you said it, to really put some true disciplines and structure in place that can live beyond this moment.
Right.
And we talk a lot about that at church, right? The things that we do at our church, and how are those things going to live beyond just that moment
Right.
with our people and in their lives. And so what are some things, you know, that we can implement, like some practical things that our audience could say, I'm going to put this in my structure of daily time with the Lord and my daily time and walk with Jesus. What are some practical things that y'all would maybe suggest putting into place?
I think if you have children in the home, children that you are doing online school with, I think you need to identify what their best times of the day are. Like you need to bring out the best in them. If you know that you get more bang for the buck in the morning with your children, then that's where I would think you would want to spend the school time. In other words, to help make yourself successful and being intentional and having some structure in your own time, you've got to know how to make them successful. It's silly to try to read your Bible when you know they're getting ready to do a math, you know?
Yeah.
Okay, because they're going to need your help.
Right.
So to set the whole house up for success, if morning is the best time to be uninterrupted, then take that time, and then school in the morning, and then lunch, etc. But I found, for me, I'm able to not feel like I have to get it all done just in the morning. Like I'm having some time with the Lord in the morning before the house wakes up. But then the house wakes up, and my husband's working from home. I've got 3 college kids at the house. My grandson's there, and the house gets very loud. And it's just not practical for me to sit down and try to read through Philippians with all that noise going on. But then lunchtime, nap time, we're back on our computers doing school, and then I can take maybe 30 minutes. So it's coming up with, I think, a new normal and a new structure that we're taking advantage of the time. I don't want to personally be done with this time that we're forced to be at home and have regret.
Right.
I don't want to look back and think, I had time to spend more time with the Lord. I had time to maybe read that book on fasting. I had time to maybe do that study on the book of James, and still didn't because of something else.
Right.
Because we may not ever get something like this again, where you have this much time
Right.
that you can spend with the Lord. I mean, life will get back to normal. We will be back to 8 hours of school and 8 hours of work, except sports and all those things. So I think setting up some different times during the day to spend with God. It doesn't all have to be right at 7 a.m.,
Right.
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah. What about you? Like, what are some practical things that you're finding helpful, or some structures that you find valuable?
Right. Yeah. So I think that the appeal of not having the kids yet, the appeal of kind of being in that younger demographic is the fluidity of schedule, right? The availability of saying, you know what, we're just going to go out to eat. Who cares? We're going to go do something with some friends. Last minute, someone texts me, want to go do something? Sure, absolutely. Me and Amy are there. We're gonna go do that. And one of the things that as Amy and I are getting older, you know, it's understanding that there's got to be some plan to life. You know, obviously coming into a career, you know, there's times that you're at work and there's times that you're doing things. And I think that for anyone out there that's in that younger demographic, you know, you're so used to just doing whatever off the hip, you know. I think that for someone in that phase of life, you know, sitting down and putting down a plan and saying, you know what, at this time I'm going to do this. You know, realistically, all anyone has going on right now is work if you're essential.
That's right.
Right? Or online classes. And because you can sit down and plan those things out, There is no like, oh, friends came up, so I'll do school later. There's no friends right now. Like, you can talk on the phone or text each other or Snapchat or whatever you want to do. But this is a good time for, I think, people in my age bracket to sit down and go, you know what, let's put a plan together. Let's sit down, you know, like Jennifer, you've got a time, like you just said, that's before the house wakes up. This is what I love to do because it's for me.
That's right.
And I think that this is a time for Amy and myself especially to go, let's put a plan in place that makes sense, that works for us, and that is something that, and like I was saying earlier, realistically, when this is all said and done, does this work for later? Because now I'm not distracted by the friend texting me if I want to go play basketball, or hey, do you want to play Xbox, or hey, do you want to go hang out and get dinner? You know, none of that's there now. The only thing to distract me from what I know I should be doing is myself.
Right.
Yeah.
And so we always talk about drive, we talk about discipline, we talk about responsibility, and all of those things come back to your mental capacity to say, you know what, I'm just going to do it. And I think that that's the hardest obstacle for many of us to get over is, I just got to do this. I just got to take care of this.
That's right.
And for anyone that's in that place right now trying to set that plan, that is going to be a huge obstacle of, well, I could just do it later. I've got all day, right? The fluidity of an open schedule now is just, I'll just find time later. And that continues to be the reason. And I think that now is a perfect time. And so setting some time and saying, you know what, at this time, you know, and so for the exercising thing that Amy and I have started doing, when I get home from work, immediately get ready, change, put some shoes, put some Nikes on, and let's get ready. Like, we're going to do this. Because if I come home,
Nike.
yeah, shout out to Nike. If I come home and I sit down and I start doing something else, well, then when does the workout happen, right?
That's
We
right.
all know how that works.
That's right.
I've got a nice, comfortable recliner that I'm fine sitting there with my dog and just hanging out.
That's right.
And so just having the mental capacity of saying, we've got to do it. And so I think for the younger demographic that's used to that fluidity of schedule, just maintaining and having a plan is kind of the best thing that you can sit down and do for yourself at this time.
Yeah, I completely agree. You got to take that mental fortitude, as I would call it, and say, I'm going to do this. And I think it's a spiritual thing, too, because here's the thing. You know, the Holy Spirit, if you're a follower of Jesus, the Holy Spirit's in you, right? So some of that conviction that comes in when you're wasting time is God-given, you know?
Yes.
So don't ignore that, is what I would say.
100%.
So even if you've maybe ignored it part of your day, and then you feel the Holy Spirit tugging at you, saying, "Hey, I need some time with you."
That's right.
Then go do it. You know,
Yeah.
like you said, take advantage of
Take
it when you
advantage
can
of
do
it.
it, right?
That's right.
Especially now. But I would say, as far as real practical, like nuts and bolts, I mean, the plan, I would say, like, to have a plan is right, and pick a plan. YouVersion Bible app is an amazing app. They do a fantastic job. There's all kinds of reading plans on there. But we as a church, as you guys know, are doing the F260 New Testament reading plan.
Right.
That my friends Robbie Gallaty and Replicate Ministries have put out there, and it's a great reading plan. It's a
Yes.
5-day week reading plan. It's not overwhelming.
Nope.
You can read it, but not just read it, but like study it. And I think sometimes we are selfish in our quiet times. And here's what I mean by that. We say, okay, I'm going to spend time reading God's word so I can feel better. We're not supposed to be cisterns of truth and information.
Right.
We're supposed to be distributors of information. Like, in other words, how would our quiet times change if we thought that we were going to have to give a presentation on what we studied,
Oh, wow. Yeah.
right? If you were going to have a conversation with somebody about what you learned that day in your quiet time. Shout out D groups, that's what that's about. But, you know, that would change how we, like, really sat down to do this discipline.
Yeah.
You know? And I think that's something that we got to keep in mind. But from a practical standpoint, I would just say the F260 New Testament reading plan is a great place to start. We'll put that in the show notes so everybody can see that and have access to that, a link to that. Also, I think, though, prayer needs to be focused.
Yes.
I think sometimes we just say, okay, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to pray, and we get through all the relatives, and then we're done with prayer. You know, or all the want list,
Yes.
right? And then we're like done with prayer. So, how does focused prayer work? What does that look like from a very practical standpoint?
I try to put some structure into my prayer, because I find that if I don't, I'm planning my grocery list about 3 or 4 sentences into the prayer.
Yeah.
So my brain just goes 90 to nothing, and the structure helps me so much. And so I do start off with Power of a Praying Wife, Power of a Praying Parent, and Power of a Praying for Your Adult Children. I have those 3 books, and I don't necessarily read them. I just pick it up,
Right.
and I just hold it. And while I'm holding Power of a Praying Wife, I start off praying for a few sentences for my husband.
Right.
I put that book down. I pick up the one for the children. I do that. I put that one down, and then I pray for my adult children that are married and out of the house. And then from there, I go into really praying through the Bible, devotions, I should
Right,
say, not
yeah.
necessarily the Bible study. But I have a few devotional books, and when I read them, I don't just read them and think, oh, that's really good. I read and I begin to think, now, how can that apply to me today? Like, is there anything I can pull out of this today? So the other day I was reading, and it was Philippians 4:6, and it was talking about be anxious for nothing.
Right.
And I began to think about, okay, so what are the things that are making me anxious today? And it just, for me, bringing up that verse, thinking about that verse, reading that devotion, I just turned it into a prayer.
Right.
And so the prayer and devotion kind of are going on for me at the same time. It's not devotion, then I pray.
Right.
It's all combined. And so it doesn't feel like this moment of prayer and this moment of devotion. They just go together. Because I feel like there's always something in a devotion, even if it's just one sentence that I can apply to myself.
And then you can pray back to God.
And I can pray back to God.
Yeah.
And then it's through that, making it personal for me, that gives that conversation when my son comes in and has coffee with me.
Right.
And I'm able to pour it back out. Let me tell you what the Lord said to me today. I realize that I'm panicking, or I'm fearful, or I'm anxious over XYZ.
Right.
And this verse really made me realize I've got to give that over to him. So is there anything bothering you? And it just gets that conversation going. So we're doing, as you said earlier, we're not just taking it in. I'm taking in and pouring it back out.
Right. Right. Real quick, Philip, like just a couple of things. Like what are some things for you as far as prayer goes?
Yeah, so I'm someone that if you know, I'm kind of opposite of Jennifer. If I've got a structure, then I kind of get distracted by like, okay, I got to do this, and I got to. So I really, I kind of try and put my phone away. I try and close the laptop, you know, get kind of away from everything that I'm currently doing. And I kind of have to separate myself from everything and just forget that everything else is going on right now. And so for me, it's just putting myself in an isolated place and making sure that nothing's going on, that no one's going to distract me, that my phone's not going to buzz, and I'm going to start thinking, oh, who's that? You know, what's going on? And so I really I put myself in a quiet place that, you know, make sure no one's going to bother me for a few minutes, and really just make sure that I spend time, you know, working through what it is that I feel like I need to be kind of in there in that moment for. You know, whether that's kind of, you know, helping, you know, asking God to give me the strength to get through some stressful moment that's going on, or, you know, sometimes I get convicted over a way that I've responded or been to somebody, and I'm like, oh man, I really need to fix this right now. And so just making sure that I've kind of put myself in that place. And so that's what I would say. My biggest thing is just kind of isolating myself in some quiet.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and I think, too, going back to what you said earlier, that prayer can be one of those things that's continual throughout the day.
That's right.
Like, I highly encourage everyone that's listening to have a dedicated time of prayer.
That's right.
But then as you go about your day, you're constantly thinking about things and people to pray for. I know that God constantly brings people to my mind that I need. And it's like, you know, we say that in our Christian world a lot of times, hey, I'll pray for you. But really, what does that mean? And I really rely on the Holy Spirit to bring those names to my mind, that I will pause and take. It doesn't have to be a 30-minute prayer. It's just a, God, be with this person. whatever they're going through in their right now. You know, make yourself real to them. And so, you know, falling back with prayer, I mean, being dedicated, having some structure to prayer, having dedication and structure to your Bible reading. As I said, just reading the Bible in a way that maybe you think I'm going to have to present this. Another way that helps me do that is the Hear Journal. I'm a terrible journaler, but when I do, I know I hang on to it more, you know? And so one of our methods here that we use in our church is the HEAR method, and it's highlight, explain, apply, and respond to what you're reading. You use that acronym to kind of guide you through your journal. Some people don't need that. That helps me. So I don't ramble and use up a bunch of pages or write nothing and just have a blank page. So those are things that help me grow. We'll put some access to that too in the show notes about what that means in case you didn't really understand that acronym. But you know, we've taken up a lot of time today, and first episode. And it's been
good.
So much fun.
It's been fun. I've loved
great.
this.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this time, and so look forward to what happens with the Paradox Culture podcast. And so, Jennifer, thank you for being our first guest. Great job.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. I want to come back.
Yes,
For sure.
We'll
For sure,
definitely have to have you back soon. And Philip, good job. You didn't screw this up. I'm very impressed with you. And so anyway, thank you guys for being a part of the Paradox podcast. Culture podcast, and tuning in with us for our first episode. Subscribe and like all that good stuff so we can continue this on. Let us know that you're watching and listening to this podcast. Stay tuned though. Next episode is going to be about, is it okay for Christians to panic?
Ooh.
And so that is our paradox for our next episode. So I hope you'll join us. Thanks again so much, and I hope you enjoyed Paradox Culture podcast.